We are coming into week number 6 here for Project Barber. I hope that by this point you're starting to just understand a little bit about how the body works from the inside out and just how amazing and phenomenal this superpower is that we all have this vehicle that communicates with us all the time, and it actually tells us exactly what we need. That is your body. It is a phenomenal piece of equipment that we have been blessed with, and I hope that by this week we're starting to just gain an understanding of how good it feels to have this amazing tool that we can start to listen to it and do what it needs. So as we come into this week, I'm going to be sharing some amazing tools with you that have helped me recognize the 3 states in my autonomic nervous system, which is the video previously you would have watched towards this one. Now, when we go through this, I'll actually be sharing with you a real-time way in which you can start to understand what your nervous system looks like, feels like, sounds like, and also what dialogue you speak by doing like a little 3-column sort of creation that has been shared to me from some of my coaches and mentors along the way. This is a really, really simple drill that is effortless and phenomenal with kids to really get to know yourself from the inside out. Because sometimes when we wake up in the morning and say we've had a really big week, we have not slept very well, we're on our phones late at night, the blue light stimulators, we're not sleeping very well, we're not making good food choices, eating processed foods, things like that, maybe drinking. That's going to play a massive role in how we feel in our nervous system. And what's going to start to happen is, of course, we are going to start to go from a regulated state, which is known as our green zone, our safety, which I demonstrated in the previous video. We're going to start to fall down the ladder or the autonomic hierarchy, and we're going to start to land in a chronic state of fight-flight. This means that unfortunately our digestive organs are not going to work very well here. There is a certain amount of tension. This state is known as mobilization with fear, which means that the body locks up, right? As opposed to a safe state, which looks like this: the shoulders are back, the heart space is open, I can maintain eye contact, and I can feel relaxed while presenting this to you. If I was in a state of fight-flight, I might feel anxious, I might feel frustrated, I would feel reactive. My shoulders are going to be up, meaning my armor is going to be on. My psoas muscle is going to become tight as that clenches up to protect the genitals. And I wear this armor, which tells my nervous system that I am actually running from a threat. And all of that can happen because the world we live in is just so fast-paced and so overwhelming sometimes. And we get on these busy and doing trains that we forget to look after the things that really help us stay regulated. Those basic things are sleep, digestion, sex, food, movement, and breathing. It is these things that help our bodies stay safe even when our environment is difficult or challenging, and we can actually maintain a grounded state even in the discomfort. So this particular exercise, this will be a shorter video today. This is just to share with you an incredible tool that I highly recommend you give a go, so that we can start to get to know what our nervous system looks like when we can't catch it. So just a little bit of a recap here, and I'll use this diagram here, which you do have in your notes, but as you can see here, you can see the autonomic hierarchy and the ladder of the 3 states. You can see that at the top of the ladder, I have my green zone known as safe and ventral, which is immobilization without fear. And at the middle of the ladder, I've got my little guy, he's a bit frustrated here, he's in fight-flight, which is known as mobilization with fear. The body mobilizes, it becomes activated to run from the so-called threat. And if you're doing that day in, day out, consistently on a regular basis, you are going to burn out, and you're going to end up like my little guy down the bottom here in freeze. He is in dorsal state, knowing he is immobilized with fear now. He is in shutdown, he is dissociated and numb. Now, this is the autonomic hierarchy in the ladder. We cannot go from here to here without going through here, and the same thing is to come back up. Now, I would refer back to the previous video that I did to describe sort of what happens in here, but I'm going to give you a brief little recap. I'm going to start from the bottom. So for many of us and a lot of teenagers that I work with, and people that are living in really unregulated states, unfortunately are actually living here in the red zone. Now, I lived in my red zone for quite a few years, especially with what I went through with my eating disorder. I numbed out, I tapped out, I dissociated from everything, and I was in complete shutdown. Instead of my body being mobilized here, I was actually forward. I was really closed. I didn't want to maintain eye contact with anyone. I didn't trust myself to even go outside or to connect with others. I felt small, I felt unheard. There was a part of me that didn't feel enough. But what was happening in my body, that it was slow and it was dark. I just saw grey, I didn't see colour, and there was no way that I could experience love, gratitude or kindness in this state. And because I only knew this state, that was what I was practicing day in and day out. I had no tools at the time to bring me up out of this state, to return me back to safety, and hence where that was why I had to do the work on myself and get to understand this hierarchical ladder, so I could then start to do what was needed and necessary to start to feel what I had pushed down for many years. Now, talking on that, to actually move out of this dorsal state, as I said, a lot of our teenagers unfortunately are living here because we become quite overwhelmed in this fight-flight state. We get in a sense of busyness. We're on our phones 6 to 8 hours a day. Let's just say plus assignments or work or stresses and things like that. You can't live in an activated state for a long period of time. The body will hold on to it, but eventually it will burn out and come back down here. And again, this is sort of where I'm finding a lot of our teenagers are living these days, because we're just spending so much time on our phones and dissociating from the reality of life. Now, when we move into this fear-based state, this is a state in our nervous system that is designed to protect us in like deep trauma or in like big accidents. Say if we can't fight or flight out of a situation like a car accident, we break the pedal and it doesn't go, our body actually goes into this shutdown state, which is just barely surviving. It does what it needs to do to keep you alive in very dangerous situations, right? But above anything, it's important to know that we cannot live here, and we actually have to do the work to come back up to here. So if we notice that we're in this free state, and this is what this little exercise is going to help you do, then what we can do is we actually need to feel emotion. To get from here to here, you can't take a pill. There's no quick fix to it. You actually have to feel emotion. So for me personally, I had to start to feel this, blame or shame or guilt or whatever it was that I was going through, and experience anger or frustration, right? And sit with it and express it safely to bring myself up out of here, feel the emotions that I had suppressed and pushed down, to then start to help me get up to this green state known as our safe zone or our ventral state. Now, again, this is just a very, very quick definition of how to move through that hierarchical ladder. But it's really important to know that we are the only ones that can do that work ourselves. If we push down something, if we suppress it or numb and run from it, it's only going to keep occurring back unless we give ourselves permission to feel. So when we can give ourselves permission to feel, to allow ourselves to express or feel or be in that anger or the frustration, to sit with whether it be guilt or shame, and then ask ourselves the question, what? Is this true for me anymore? And I guarantee you it's not. So that's where it's okay to just journal out what you feel, to go hit a set of boxing pads or scream into a pillow, to dance, to let that energy get out safely, so you can then come more up the ladder into your ventral state, your green state. So that's when you can start to rewire your brain to then shift your self-talk and create new neural pathways. That's it in a nutshell. So again, most of that I described in the previous video, but what I want us to do now is a little bit of work here, going through those 3 states of the nervous system, so our red zone, our orange zone, and our green zone, and we're going to break down what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like, and we're going to figure out what animal we are in these states. It's a really fun drill. I'm going to do it with you. So what I want you to do is to draw 3 columns like this. Cool. And what's going to happen is when you're drawing the 3 columns like that, we're going to, I'm just going to do it in black because it's going to be easier for you to see, but you can choose any colors that you want to with this one. I would recommend, of course, doing it in green, orange, and red so that you get familiar with these 3 states. So all I'm going to write at the top, I'm not calling it what they are, as in ventral, spinal, sympathetic, or dorsal. I'm just going to say green, orange, and red so that it's easier to understand for you to get to know your nervous system, right? So again, as we're going through this, we're going to start down in the red zone, okay? Because it feels much nicer to come up and finish in the green zone. So what we're going to do, and I recommend you do this with me, is we're going to ask a question here. What animal reminds me of being in my red zone? So what animal am I when I am in my free state or my red zone? Okay, now I'm going to draw an animal here. I'm going to do my best to draw it. I think I'm getting better at drawing now that I've done this for a little bit, but maybe I'm not, but we'll see. I'll let you be the judge of that. Now, for me, being in my red zone is a turtle. I think that's pretty good. So a turtle for me reminds me of the turtle pulling its head into the shell and fully dissociating from what's around it. It's like, I need to disappear. I can't talk to anyone in this state. I feel like I want to completely shut down and just be in my own world. So a turtle reminds me of my red zone, right? So it gives me a bit of a visual of what my body is doing when I am in my red zone. Your body is everything. Remember, your body is only listening to cues that we tell it. And again, when we look at being on our phones, for example, if I am here, and I know I've spoken to you guys about this a lot, but I can't hammer it in enough. If you're sitting in a shopping center or somewhere, wherever, and you're scrolling, have a look at what my body is doing. This is training my body to think it is in the red zone. Everything's slouched and in and rounded, and my everything, my organs are protected here. My heart's not open, so how can I be kind in that state? So our phones are playing a huge role in what is actually going on, not only with our bodies, but our digestion, our self-talk, our behaviors, right? And of course our actions from that. So I'm so big on really starting to become aware of what is going on and what we're cueing to these bodies day in and day out, so that we can be the best humans that we can be in this life that we're living as well. So my animal is a turtle. I encourage you to write down whatever animal that is for you. The next question I need you to address is, what does my body do? Right? So what does your body do when you are in your red zone? Okay, I'm going to write down 3 things. Right now, 1, it closes. 2, for me, my eyes go down. And 3, for me, it feels heavy. I just feel heavy. I feel small, heavy, and closed. Now, you might have your own. You should have your own. It'll be very different for you. But you can see that that's not a great space for my body, and it's not anywhere that I can access kindness or love. The next thing that I need you to write down after this one is, what does my body do and what emotions do I feel here? Now that might be 1 to 2 to 3. I highly recommend writing down 3 if you can. So in this emotion, I'm just going to write down 2 today, just for the purpose of this. I'm going to write down overwhelmed. I feel completely overwhelmed when I'm in this state. And I also can experience these senses of unworthiness or helplessness. Okay, they are some emotions that I can experience when I'm in my red zone. The last question I need you to write down and answer is, my dialogue or my self-talk is this. And this is the I ams. So for me, I'm not enough. Straight away. That is a big one that comes out whenever I'm in my red zone. I'm not enough. Another one that might pop into this one is I'm not safe, or I'm experiencing these feelings of shutdown, or everything is too much for me right now. So it is a dialogue that we speak to ourselves, generally starting with the words I am, and that is a reflection of what actually comes out when we're living in this red zone. So if you think about it for a moment, in this state we experience like heightened depression, we can experience some pretty big behaviors and actions that can stem towards I guess us not looking after the body the best that we can, to put that in very blunt terms. So when we are in that state, it's just like we really don't care. We don't want to be here, and it feels really dark. Hence why we do this, to write this down so that you can actually now see what this looks like if you don't catch it. So I keep this on my fridge so that I can see when I walk outside in the morning, I actually go, hang on, what state am I in today? What animal am I right now? Because it then just allows me a quick little check-in, because then I can go, oh, my self-talk is really down here at the moment. I'm saying I'm not enough. That means I'm in my red zone. Okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to feel to then help me come back up to my green zone? So let's move to our orange zone now. So this is our spinal sympathetic. It looks like this. We are activated, right, or mobilized with fear, which means we are on, we are tense, we are rigid, we're ready to fight. We are ready to go to battle. We are righteous. We talk over the top of other people. We are frustrated. We are annoyed. We are people pleasing. We are perfecting in this state. So what is your animal in this state? What animal reminds you of this state? Now, I'm gonna do my best to draw this. I don't usually draw this animal, but I'm gonna try it out and see how I go. So here we go. Now, I do not think this is what it looks like, but I think it's actually not a bad, oh my goodness, not a bad idea to share this one with you. So this is, it actually looks like a crocodile mixed with a lizard. It's actually a hyena. Anyway, that's my hyena. He's a bit scattered. He's a bit angry. And if you've ever come across a hyena in the wild, which I have in Africa, they're freaking terrifying. I remember when I went over to Comrades to run 90 Ks in one day. We went to Zimbabwe afterwards and went on a bit of a safari tour and walked with lions. But we also ran into some hyenas that were absolutely terrifying. I'd rather walk with lions than see another hyena in my life. So that reminds me of being in this like real scattered kind of anxious and fight-flight state. So that's going to be my animal. My animal is my hyena. Now I need to answer the question, what does my body do here? So I'm going to write down 3 things that my body does when I'm in my spinal sympathetic state. So first one is I put my armor on. I call this my armor. My shoulders go up and my traps activate, which is cranial nerve 11. Again, I haven't even spoken on the cranial nerves, but we've got 5 particular cranial nerves that originate in the brainstem. We've got 12, but 5 in particular that communicate to the nervous system. And this being one of them, the moment that's activated, you're just communicating to your nervous system that you are under threat. So I put my armor on. All right, 2 other things that happen. I bloat. I immediately bloat the moment I go into fight flight because my digestive system shuts down. That's what happens. So whenever I bloat now, I get used to saying thank you, because when I can thank the bloating, I can do something about it and recognize that I'm not under threat. The third thing that happens when I go into fight flight, right, is I notice, right, that my jaw clenches, right? I get this like tightness in my TMJ and it becomes really achy. So I'm going to just put jaw tension. There are 3 things that happen for me. You might feel sick in the belly. You might notice your hips get tight, your lower back, whatever those things are in the body that happens for you, write them down. Right? What emotions do I experience here? Okay. So again, I'm going to write down 2 or 3. So what I experience here is potentially frustration, and that can be linked to people pleasing or perfection. Right? I can also move into righteousness, you know, feeling the need to be right or to settle an argument with someone, when in essence and in the reality of the situation, not one of us know enough to be right. And if we were in our relaxed green state, we would have no need to argue that, right? So righteousness is something that I can experience here. One of the other things, one of the other emotions that I can feel here, right, is judgment, right? I can judge or criticize myself very easily in this state. When we are in a safe state, when we're in our green zone, we have no need to judge ourselves or criticize because we believe we're enough as we are, right? So this is so interesting, this work. So write down what emotions you feel. And lastly, what is the dialogue that you speak to yourself? What are the words you speak to yourself here, right? Whatever I do, it's not going to be enough, right? Or I'm critical of what I'm seeing in the mirror, or when I lose 10 kilos, I'll be happy then. When I reach this point, I'll be happy then, right? I'll do everything in my power to make other people happy, but I'll come there. And then you move into resentment. So what are some of the things that you say to yourself here? This can be along the lines of perfection, people pleasing, again, guilt, shame, blame can come into this kind of stuff. We do things because we're feeling a residual emotion that we've held on to from a past experience, we feel guilty or shameful about, and then that plays a role in us living in this sense of fight flight, right? Again, and we've held on to that with our willpower. So it's so important to recognize, what are the words I say to myself when I'm in fight flight, right? It's like, oh, like if I get this done, then I'll be happy then, or it's always an if or a but in this state. So write down a few things that you say to yourself when you're feeling frustrated or angry or you're judging or comparing. And I want you to write them down because they are going to be what you can see on this piece of paper to recognize if you are in a state of fight flight and you're not being chased by a tiger. So lastly, and this will finish the video here, we're going to of course finish off in our green zone, which of course is known as safety, social engagement. It is here, it is open. You can see that my body is not closing at all. So when I use my phone, this is where I want to be. I don't want to be here because that's training my body to close. I need to be open. So it's so, so important because it's here, right? And also accessing our prefrontal cortex that we can choose again. And that's how we rewire the brain, which I'm going to go into in the next couple of sessions. So what's your animal here? What animal are you when you're in your ventral state? So there's a couple here for me. So I personally love, I'm gonna give it a go. I love ducks. And I love ducks because they're like these, oh my goodness, I really need practice doing this. I love ducks because they're these really, really calm, like animals. And oh my goodness, It looks like a seal. Anyway, it's a duck, but that's my duck. And they're these beautiful, calm animals that look after their young. You'll see them in the ocean just bobbing along, even when it's really, really rough, and they don't give a shit. They're just sitting in the discomfort, and they just wait, and they cuddle in the swells, basically. They cross a road with their young. They don't care about the cars around them. They're just chest up, head up, and they're slow. They remind me of this real cool, calm creature. So my animal is a duck. You choose what resonates with you. Now, again, what does my body do when I feel calm and I feel safe? One, I'm going to write down 3 things. The first one is I'm open. I can feel it. It means I'm in flow. My heart's open, my hips are open, my prefrontal cortex is open, which is the part of the brain that can choose. The other thing that happens here, my digestion works really well, right? So I know that when I'm in flow and I'm in my safe state, my digestive organs work. Things just move. And the third thing that my body does when it's in this state, right, is it basically feels like it's in flow. I can't describe it any more than that. There's a softness and a yielding. I feel gentle, I feel calm, I don't move super fast. It is really a beautiful flow state, and that's what I experience when I'm in my green zone. All right, what emotions do I feel here? Okay, I'm gonna write down a few here. I feel content. I can land into acceptance of what is, right? I accept what's here, even when things are difficult. I'm like, it is what it is, and I choose to surrender to it. The other things here, we feel are love and kindness and self-compassion, massive stuff. And this only happens when we're in our green state, right? So lastly, of course, what is the words I speak to myself when I come home, when I'm in my green state? I am more than enough. I am totally accepting of how things are. I can trust the process rather than land into fear. So here's a big one for you. Anytime you feel fear, it's because you have moved out of your safe state in your nervous system down into either fight, flight, spinal sympathetic, or freeze, shut down. So fear is a fantastic opportunity and a teacher to remind us to go, hang on, am I being chased by the tiger in this state? Or is it just a moment of discomfort, and am I being anxious or worried about something in the future? Or am I spending time thinking about something in the past that I should have, could have, or would have done? And all of that is irrelevant, because fear is a choice, and it comes when our nervous system is unregulated. So I hope that helps. This little diagram is something that I hope helps you as much as it's helped me. I recommend putting it on your fridge and having them in the colors, so that when you wake up in the morning and you actually can't tune in, and you wake up and you're feeling frustrated and anxious, and you're on the steamroll of having one of those days, look at the fridge, tune into what animal you are, tune into your self-talk, tune into what your body's doing. I'm going to guarantee it's going to be closed if you're in either of those states, and ask yourself the question, is this needed or necessary? And what do you need to do for your body? What do you need to feel? What do you need to practice for yourself to start to bring yourself back up to your green zone safety before you go out in your day, so that you can not only be the watcher of your behaviors, your actions, and your dialogue, but be kind and compassionate to yourself and accepting, so that you can then be a light for another person. Because you can't help anyone if you're living in a chronic state of fight, flight, or freeze. Your body simply thinks it's running from a tiger, and you are going to be on your way to inflammation, sickness, and dis-ease if that's what's going on in your body. Your body will always be your biggest teacher. It is as simple as observing if it is open or closed. And if you find that it is closed, it's about asking yourself the question, is this needed or necessary? Am I under threat? And what does my body need to return back to a place of love? Because it is there that you will then be able to rewire your brain to shift your self-talk. I hope this helps. I'd love to hear from you how this diagram goes. It has been a huge teacher for me, and I hope that it gives you a really great understanding of where you're sitting in your autonomic nervous system. Take care, and thanks again.